Welcome, everyone, to episode 32 of The Bunker Talk. So excited to have my good friend Melia Arnett-Archie from I have to look at this one because there's quite a few businesses that we're going to talk about. The Modern Creator Law Firm. Thank you so much for being here with me today, Melia. Tell everyone about yourself.
Thank you for having me, first of all. So I am the owner of Modern Creators Law Firm, which is a law firm that specializes in supporting creators, influencers, and creative entrepreneurs. So we are in an area that's really a new niche around social media, which is a mashup of intellectual property, business law, and transactional work, sort of contracts and that sort of thing. So having a great time doing that, and it's co-located with my podcast and creator studio in Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
First of all, it is very new. I mean, I haven't heard of any other attorney that does that specific part. So super exciting stuff, I'm sure. You know, and helping people that are creative, helping people that are putting themselves out there, right? We're in this generation of influencing, which is so odd, right? It's like the concept of it is so odd, and the concept that people's livelihoods rely on that is even more odd when you think about it. Like, it's a job.
Yeah, well, I mean, influencing is not new. I think influencing as a profession and as a professional term is, when you think about it, that's what television ads have been doing for years, right? Is that the hope is that it influences us to buy or to be loyal to a brand. And so what we're seeing now is actually people buy from people they trust. And so the old media, old advertising isn't as effective as you seeing someone who looks like you, who sounds like you, who relates to you, who's using a product and is demonstrating its value. That then makes you want to purchase. And so we see companies really understanding that and using everyday folks to engage with other everyday folks.
I love that. And I follow you on TikTok. So I actually saw one of your recent posts that you talked about about this micro influencer niche, right? I guess you could talk about that, because I don't know, there's a misconception of that you have to have a million followers to start making money online. That's not the case anymore.
That is absolutely not the case. There's an area called user-generated content where brands actually prefer to work with micro influencers because they're more adept at building community around the products and the brand. And again, the larger the influencer gets, the more commercial they seem. And so for some brands, that's not as effective as having a micro influencer who still has that believability, relatability, and authenticity around how they create content and how they leverage their community.
So how does somebody get started, selfishly asking? Because sometimes I'm just like, man, Nicole, so we're both a part of the Daily Drip. And so when I had Nicole on for her episode, she had told me about, starting sharing more of my journey and my content. And I'm sure you hear this. And the question's always like, yeah, but who cares? Like, who's interested in my life? Like, no, but I don't have anything to share, right? Like, I'm not doing anything crazy. And she was like, well, that's where you're wrong, because people are connected to the CEOs, to the founders. They want to know the stories. They want to know what your hard day was like. That whole, and so it's shifting, and I'm getting there. Like, I've bought the equipment to do it. And but the thought of well, maybe I can use this as a stream of income one day. How does one start?
Absolutely. So Nicole is absolutely right. And what I've seen over the years is there's three things that, and when you think about a business owner, because we want to go to social media and we want to use it not only to connect with customers and clients, but to add value, to educate. But we want to talk about that. We want to stay in that lane, that mastery lane. But for mastery to be effectively communicated and related to your audience, you have to do two other things. You have to show some authenticity, which means you have to show them you, not just what you do. And you have to have accessibility or relatability. So we've developed at VoiceBox sort of a triangle model we call the trust model, and it includes that authenticity, mastery, and accessibility, AMA. And those three things in a content strategy is what allows you to go from, I'm a business owner, I'm on social media, I'm talking about what I'm the subject matter expert in, I am providing this value to my client, to now I can actually use social media as another revenue stream, because I'm also talking about, what I use to keep my skin clear. I'm showing you the products that I like for my children, the toys that I'm buying from my children, but not in a way that's salesy. It's just a part of my life. And because now you are related to more than just the business side of me, then I can now share this part and these products and these services that I'm using. So, I think business owners should think more broadly about how we're leveraging social media and what our audience needs from us, because they need to see that it's possible through an imperfect person.
That's so good. That is so good. And it's so true. And even like, if I think about the way I've consumed content, it has drastically changed. While I've been on this journey, right, of not only entrepreneurship but putting myself out there, the content that I have consumed now. Before, I feel like it was very celebrity driven, right? Like, thankfully, I was never on the Kardashian train, but like, it was just the household names of
pop
stuff. Pop culture. That's the perfect definition for it, right? And I feel like my content consumption now is nothing of that, and it's very, very localized. I love to follow local business owners. I love to see. I've found myself doing a lot of like what I wore to work type content, like just to like get ideas to feel good, while doing that stuff. It's true. I never really had connected those dots, but even the way we are consuming content is changing to a more micro level.
That's right. That's right. And that's why it's really popping now, because brands are understanding that. They're understanding that people like you are going to watch micro influencers, show what they're wearing to the brands that they're wearing. And so it's a really, really effective way to market. And so, yes, micro influencers, that would be anyone under 10,000 followers. They are able to monetize because of that. So, there's what I always encourage people to think about monetization. Like, you have a mixed bag of stuff, right? So yes, the platforms you can monetize on, usually you have to have some following number that the platforms assign and some other engagement metrics. That's one way. But you can also just go directly to brands. And so that's what I'm teaching in my new program, the DIY Brand Deal Masterclass, is how I can take my small following, my micro following, and turn that into cash. Because if we're on social media, my motto is, if you're going to be scrolling, you should be making money.
I love that.
There's no reason why we should be spending as much money on much time, on social media as we do as consumers. And then we not sort of learn from that, what we're seeing, and turn that into revenue for us.
I love that. And sometimes while I am scrolling on social media, especially TikTok is the platform that just sucks you in. I notice that like there's people that just make content about other people's content.
Yeah, that's actually a pet peeve of mine.
I feel like, I'm like, man, and these people have 1 million views, and it's just like, and I think to myself, these people are monetizing it and they have no talent.
Right. Well, exactly. I mean, and that is sort of my pet peeve with it. It's like, in all the how-tos, and they're needed. Like, people want to learn from other people about how to do social media, but I'm like, how have you gotten 1 million followers just telling people how to do it? Like, how to do social media. That's what you're doing. That's how you're doing it. It's like, oh, it's such a cheat code. Yeah. But I'm probably just more envious than anything, because it's such an easy way to do it. If that was my thing, I would probably be doing it as well. But the point is, yes, I posted, I don't know if you saw it, a video of a woman in the bed sleeping on TikTok Live.
Oh, I saw it.
On TikTok Live. And I sat in the live for a minute, and I just looked like, how many viewers are in here? There were like 600 people watching her sleep and sending her gifts, which translate to money. And it's like, she is literally making money in her sleep. on social media, doing nothing but literally sleeping.
And I think that my day in the life of is not valuable.
Exactly.
It's really, it is really shifting the mindset of that. And, you know, you got to get over the initial, well, people are going to be like, oh, she thinks she's an influencer now, right? Like, who does she think she is? Like, that's a whole thing.
Here's the thing.
I mean, I've done it.
But you said something key. You said they're going to think. And that's where we get caught because we're thinking about our immediate circle, the people that know us.
Right.
But social media should never be about the people that are closest to you. Not if you want to really, really do social media and monetize on social media. You have to think past your closest network to the people who don't know you, who will actually find value in what you're doing and what you're providing, the stories that you're telling, the insights you're giving into your life. But it's because we think so closely, right?
Right, because you're immediately embarrassed.
Exactly. And it's getting over that awkwardness, and it does take time.
Even talking to the camera like yourself, like I've already done this, and I got my teleprompter there in the corner, like I could do the videos like one-on-one, but like turning around the camera and like I'm in the TJ Maxx hole on TikTok, and like people are, and one of the girls is like, I haven't gotten over the fear of recording in public yet. Yeah. Like at TJ Maxx, you know, and it's odd. It's odd.
It makes you feel very awkward.
Yeah.
But with anything else, it's when you challenge yourself to push past that. And when people come into the studio, I tell them, look past the camera, right? Look past the camera and see the person, the one person that you're targeting, the one person that you're talking to, talk to that person through the camera. And it makes it easier to sort of get out of your head and recognize that, yes, there's one person. Now, there might be thousands of that one person, we hope.
Right.
But you're really talking to one person. So when you talk about, you know, a day in the life of Ciara, it's that one person that cares. That's all you care about. And recognizing everybody is not your person.
Right.
And that is my mantra. I live by that. I have to remind myself that daily. I'm not everybody's cup of tea. But the people who I am for, they are going to be I need to show up for them because they need what I'm saying. They need to hear it. They need to feel it. They need to experience it. And I keep showing up for those people.
This is so powerful. The piece about like thinking about that one person. So, in the recent speaking that I've been doing, you know, I've gotten some incredible feedback that is so encouraging. And sometimes I think to myself, like, why am I doing this? And like, you know, you doubt yourself. And I also leave my business to do these things. So it's starting to, you know, be a heavier decision because now I have a team. So all of that. But when you think about the value of someone seeing themselves in you, that is starting to happen to me now. And it's an incredible feeling. And it's also a very heavy feeling because now it's a responsibility.
It is a responsibility. When I go silent on my social media for longer than a week, they come looking for me, right? Because they're looking for my daily inspirational posts. They're looking for the information that I'm providing about social media law and business. And I feel obligated to make sure I'm showing up for them. But that's a good thing.
It's a good thing, right?
Because when you are really mission driven,
you're connecting too.
Yes, and you're going to keep showing up because you know that there are people depending on you to show up.
You're not just sleeping in a bed.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, listen, I'm not like, I saw a TikTok of a girl that it was like in the ocean and they were recording her. She like swam up to the boat and she was like, I'm not a 10, but I'm a 6 that gets paid $30,000 a month for people to watch me swim. And she turned away and swam. And I was like, man. And I am working a lot.
It's real. Listen, the creators economy right now is almost $200 billion. Wow. By 2030, it's going to be almost $600 billion.
Wow. We got to get on it. I got to get on it.
So yes, we have to start looking at it like business.
Business, yes.
You know, business owners, I just cringe when I hear business owners that don't understand the value of social media past LinkedIn. Most of my business comes from TikTok, right? So it's really understanding what's happening with the creators economy, how people are consuming information, how people are making buying decisions. And it really is on these platforms. And we have to have a presence that allows us to participate in that, or we're doing ourselves, we're doing our customers, we're doing our clients a huge disservice.
Can we talk about how to grow your audience? Like, what is the best advice to because obviously you don't want the like ghost followers,
Yeah.
right? How do you do that? How do you grow an audience to start if you wanted to start this?
My number one piece of advice is don't focus on being viral. I think people go wrong in their approach to social media because they look at the viral trends. And yes, you need to look at the trends, and you need to, use trending audio and hashtags and that sort of thing. I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is when you approach social media with the mindset that you're not successful unless you have a viral post, one, you're setting yourself up to fail because that's just unlikely. That's not the real,
right.
That's not real life. And also that's the way you produce your content. When you're chasing a viral moment, you're not being true to what you're on social media to do. You haven't established that. It's really the cheap way to approach social media. So, my advice in helping people to think about how to grow an audience is decide what's your thing. And it might not be your business. You might be a business owner that wants to do business on social media, but like, what's your thing? For me, my 3 pillars are I educate, I inspire, and I tell good stories.
You do those all very well.
Thank you so much.
Very well.
Like that's my thing. And so that's what my community can search me out for. They can expect that. I'm going to deliver that. And because of that, slowly over time, you build a community versus a following. Because you can have a huge following that they're not engaged, right? Because they came to you because you had a viral moment.
And they don't even know why.
And they don't know why. They don't remember.
And they're going to expect that level of content again.
Exactly.
They're going to expect you to be that funny again or, that dramatic, whatever it was.
So the advice is small steps. Keep showing up consistently.
That's what I was going to ask next.
Be consistent. Show up. You're going to create the content. You're going to publish it. You're going to be on a schedule. It's going to feel like work. It should feel like work. Because it is. Because you should take it seriously. It should be fun, but it should feel like something that requires strategy and thought and an investment of time. And once you start to be consistent and the algorithm needs to trust you. Because the algorithm won't push your content to the Explorer page or to the For You page if they don't believe that you're going to be a consistent content creator on the app. So they're always going to... they're going to prefer and they're going to prioritize the consistent content creators that are showing up, right? So you'll see your views go down when you get off your posting schedule. This happens to me because, I am who I am, and every now and then I just have to step away to allow my creativity to refuel. And when I come back, I have to pay about a week's price for having been away for a week. So you'll see that. So be consistent. Again, be authentic. Have something that you've mastered that you can provide value based upon, and then accessible. Let people see behind the scenes. Give them a little insight into who you really are when you're not working, when you're not in the office, your funny side. If you're upset, you don't have to let them in all your business, but you need to be relatable. People need to be able to see themselves in you to a certain extent.
When you talk about the being consistent part, what do you suggest? Is it, and I know that it varies per platform, right? So I know TikTok favors like a couple posts a day. That's what I've heard. But I know there's not a magic pill for it either. What if I'm getting started right now? My TikTok is like these videos. I'm using this for that. I don't do any behind the scenes. I don't do anything, but I'm committed to starting. So like, what would you suggest for someone that like has a full-time job?
Yeah.
Like once a day, once a week, what do you suggest?
So the platforms do sort of have different preferences in how often they want to see you post. But more important than that is you setting a realistic schedule for yourself. Because you can kind of train the algorithms, right? Again, if you're posting once a week at this time, over time, that's your consistency. Right. And the algorithm will respect that and will reward that. That's better. It's better for you to post once a week consistently than for you to say you're going to post twice a day and you're missing it,
One day yes, one day no.
Exactly. Yeah. Because then that confuses the algorithm. It confuses your audience. They don't know when to expect your content. So what I would say is, really think about what's realistic for you. And I was just talking about this in my DIY brand deal class. Because before we ever start talking about how to reach out to brands, it's how do you make sure you have a quality product that you're pitching the brands with. And it is really that consistency and accountability and making sure that you have a plan for how you're going to go about it. You're being true to that plan, and you have some levers that can be pulled to make sure you're holding yourself accountable for that.
So that person that is at the level of, that micro influencer that maybe has accepted a couple deals, maybe, and I don't know how that works, right? Maybe it's, hey, make a post about our product, our soap, however that it works. And they've maybe accepted it without even having a professional review it. They don't, know what they've gotten themselves into. When does someone call you? What are the roadblocks to avoid with this stuff? Like what should they be looking for? When is it like, wait, this might be too big for me?
First of all, I'll say, in my experience, it's not just the micro influencers that are signing deals, sight unseen and accepting anything that the brands throw their way. It's the mega. I'm talking about influencers I work with that have over 1 million followers. And the risk is this: micro, macro. They don't see themselves as businesses.
There it is.
They don't understand that they are a business, whether they've ever formally registered a business or not, that you are a sole proprietor, which is the highest risk business model that you can have because you are personally liable for everything that might happen while you're doing what you're doing, and that's producing content, publishing content. And I'll give you an example of what this looks like. There was a macro influencer who was promoting a product for a brand, did not have an LLC wrapped around it. He was doing it, as a sole proprietor. The product ended up causing harm to people. It was like a beauty product, and people were getting burned. The people sued the brand, but because there was no indemnity clause in the agreement that protected the influencer, they were also able to sue the influencer for promoting the product, because it was, their thought that, listen, I bought this because you said I should be using it. Even though he didn't know anything about how the product was made, probably didn't know much about the ingredients, definitely hadn't been privy to any testing or not that had been done to know whether these things were a risk or not. But he was brought into that lawsuit and couldn't get out of it simply because he did not have the right terms in the agreement with the brand, because he just signed it. And so that's the risk, is that, everything that happens when you're working with brands is a risk to you, that you want to at least have some liability protections.
Yeah, like a buffer.
A buffer, right, between you and, what could the harm and what could the damages that could be a result of, things going bad. And so that's what I would say is creators need to look at themselves as businesses, and they need to be conducting their content creation through a business, meaning if you're signing a contract, it's not in your name, it's in your LLC's name, right? You need to be paying taxes. I have so many people come to me and, they get these 1099s at the end of the year from brands who have gifted products. I just did a post about this recently because it's like, I'm tired of having to listen. A gift is a value that you are going to have to potentially pay taxes for. And you need to understand that when you take the gifted collaboration, because it may not be worth it for you, right? It may not be worth it. But these are the things that they don't understand because they're not thinking of it through the lens of a business owner that has interests, that has risks that need to be mitigated. And so that's where I come in, is I'm educating on that. I'm like, the brand wants exclusivity, and people who hear me talk about this are going to laugh right now at this moment, because this is sort of my soapbox. Like, exclusivity, like, what does that mean? Who cares? Well, that means they don't want you to work with anyone else during the term of this deal engagement with them. Why are you not making more money for that? Because that means you cannot work. You're barred from working with other people during this time. And so they have to pay for that. So you never give up exclusivity without more money. So these are all the levers that you can pull to turn maybe what was a small deal into a much bigger deal, because you know what to ask for. Here's the catch. Brands expect to pay it. but they're not going to volunteer it if you don't ask it.
Isn't that everything in life though, when it comes to money?
Yes.
And isn't that our fault, especially as women, asking for less because we're too afraid to ask for more?
Yes. 100%.
What do we do? How do we navigate? I mean, just this is life advice at this point, right? Like how do we have the confidence to ask for more?
You have to know who you are. I think it's an identity thing. When we're unsure of ourselves and the value that we bring, we take what people give us versus asking for what we need and what we want.
I mean, that's it. That's it. There's nothing else to say.
It's true.
It's so true. It's so true. That exclusivity part is also pretty interesting when it comes to that world, because even if it's exclusivity with like maybe the niche or the industry versus just in general, like you said, for the length of the contract, I mean, that's something that I had never even thought of, but it makes sense. I think people at that level, especially like at the micro influencer level, you're just so excited to get your first deal. And then if you say no to this one, are you going to get other ones and that type of thing? What do you think about like those influencers like that once they've made it, right? And how does an influencer navigate, advancing their business with a deal or staying true to themselves?
Yeah. And so what I say is the higher you go, the more with any business, you have to hire what you don't know, because you take yourself out of the creative process when you start worrying about things that's my job to do, right? That's Ciara's job to do from an insurance perspective. But that's why you need a team. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, is because I want creators to be able to focus on what they do best, which is to create. I want entrepreneurs to be able to focus on what they do best, which is build their businesses. But that means you've got to make the investment in the things that are going to help you grow that you're not an expert in, like the legal side, like the business strategy, like liability, those sort of things. And so, you have to understand that as you grow, you have to build your team. It's the same with any business.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What about the piece of, I don't know, do you remember, maybe it was a couple months ago, maybe it was already a year ago, where like Instagram was down?
Oh yeah.
What is the tactic to capturing your followers' information?
Okay, I'm gonna do the robot right here because yes,
for another
so good.
For that, like, how do you get them off of that platform to get their information in case that happened again, or this debate of if TikTok is going away? Like, what happens?
So I have been preaching this for a couple of years now. You have to own your audience.
How?
So, for example, there's a few ways to do that. One, you should always be collecting when people come to your page as I hate saying follower, but as part of your community. They should know how to get in touch with you. And so that might be a link in your bio that you're pointing people to. And you should be offering things to them. For example, in my bio, I have my Stand store where when people are interested in something, I really, are you teaching that? Yes, I have a class on Thursday. Check that link. It's taking them off of the platform and putting them into my environment, into my world.
Your ecosystem.
My ecosystem, yes. Exactly. And you have to be very targeted and very, 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 very directed in doing that. Because if they only know to find you on the apps, you're right. Community guidelines violations could shut you down. The app could go away altogether. And then what? They don't know where. And I had a YouTuber who came to me and they shut his page down at I think 1.5 million followers he had, or subscribers he had on YouTube. And he didn't have anything else. So he was at that point trying to rebuild on YouTube from scratch. But they take time because you don't get your name back. You don't get those things back.
Those people have to find
all
you.
Of that goodwill. Yeah. And so I'd say you use the social media platforms as, sort of at the top of your funnel. This is the first place that people are going to experience you. That's the entry. But then you need to be directing them immediately to your ecosystem where they can find you, they can connect with you, and you can capture their information and, have that and to reach out.
I remember when all of this, I guess social media came out, but really I remember watching YouTube, and I remember I started watching like makeup videos, right? on YouTube. Though that I feel like that's the earliest memory I have of an influencer, right? Like I would watch their makeup routines and the products that they used. And then it was like, how do they do their hair? And then it evolved into like the day in the life of, and you know, you get so invested in these people's lives. Like, you know, they're, you know everything about them, but like the platform shift, because I feel like even the influencers that I followed back then that I still follow now, I don't really go back to YouTube to watch their content anymore. I'm watching them on Instagram, some of them on TikTok, mainly still like on Instagram. What about the diversification of content per platform? Like, is YouTube still best for long form content? I know the shorts are picking up there too. Like, should we be posting the same video on every platform? Like, is there a strategy to that?
Yeah, so I think YouTube is still the preferred platform for long form content, and I think it will remain that way. And actually just read something that they're actually, over the next couple of years, will be making a pivot and will feel more like Netflix, but of people, right? So, you know, cutting out that middleman now and allowing you to really have series and, you know, right, directly to direct to consumer through YouTube. So these are interesting changes and interesting times for content creations and great opportunities for creators who want to create in different ways. I think the first question is, what kind of content are you good at that you like to create? Because what happens is when we marry our content style to a platform style, we get burnt out because it may not be what drives best for us. For example, I'm extremely effective on TikTok. Like, that is my platform. But I also know that I need to be on the other platforms. And so it is some of repurposing content for other platforms. But I will say repurposing content is a less effective strategy because each platform has a personality. So if you are going to repurpose content, you need to repurpose it and edit it in a way that's going to play well on that platform. When you pick up a piece of content from one platform that was created for one platform and you just plop it down on another platform, you know, you may get some traction, but it's not going to play as well because it wasn't created for that algorithm, for that platform, and the way consumers on that platform are consuming content. So that would be my advice there. But then that becomes unwieldy because it's like, okay, I have to create and I have to edit for YouTube. I have to edit for TikTok. I have to edit for Instagram. It depends on what your goals are, is what I would say. In the beginning, for people getting started, so you don't get burnt out, you don't get frustrated and overwhelmed, what I'd say is you have a primary platform. You pick a primary platform, maybe two if you have a lot of time. If you don't, you pick a primary platform and you create content that you know is going to pop on that platform, and then you do your very best to repurpose it on the other platforms.
And scheduling tools, how do we feel about that? Do you think it diminishes the engagement?
It does.
I think so too.
It does.
I think so too. So again, I'm learning all of this stuff, and I will just post the one video that I like, my short, you know, it's posted on YouTube, and then I'll post it on Instagram and on TikTok. So I'm just doing that. But even that, like, I just feel, I mean, I'm still in 200 jail on TikTok, but I don't have any strategy there. I'm not consistent, but I feel that way too. I just don't use a scheduler because I feel like it does really minimize I don't know why, the engagement.
Yeah, I would say posting directly in the app using an app schedule, the social media app scheduler is a little different than using sort of a third-party scheduler. That is definitely going to trigger the algorithm in a negative way for you, and you know, it's going to have an impact. But I think, you know, you have better luck using the scheduler within the app.
I've never tried that. I'm going to try that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that could be helpful, right?
Absolutely. It could, because you could have, like you said, if you approach this as a business and you schedule it, and you can maybe say on Sundays, I'm going to schedule my post for the week.
Yeah.
That definitely does help. Maybe if you have a day or if you have an editor and you get it back, like if there's a schedule, it helps you stay consistent. You can do it that way. Absolutely.
Yeah. And the reason why you want to do it within the app is because they're looking for original content. Right? All the apps want to believe that you are creating content for their app and for the consumers on the app. And so when you use a third-party scheduler, you know, you'll get dinged because, you know, clearly you're repurposing content.
Right. They know it's going
like.
across.
Exactly.
Yeah. I like that. That's a really good point, and that's a good. I feel like that's an easy that's an easy recognition, right? Or it's worth the extra effort to do that just off the bat, right? Like if you're going in with the scheduler, you're already kind of starting a little negative,
Yeah.
in like value and in like points. And I know LinkedIn does that too with their platform. Like in your post, you shouldn't put like the hyperlink to take people out of the platform.
Right.
You do it in the comments. Like if I'm sending someone to my YouTube to like my podcast video, I would you do it in the comments because LinkedIn will then mess with your engagement. That makes sense. This has been so good. Thank you so much. I know that there's going to be so much value in this piece, but I have so much to talk to you about besides this. So, Be Her Collective. Yes. Let's talk about it. What is it?
So Rochelle, my partner, Rochelle, Sylvain Spence and I, we came together. We're babies of the Daily Drip. We say Be Her Collective is a child of the Daily Drip. We met at the Daily Drip as thought leaders, and we in our first one-on-one, we sat down and we were talking about all of the things that we had going on. I had tried to launch a networking group for women of color because it's a passion of mine, obviously, as a woman of color, to really be able to give back and pull other women of color forward who are in transition, either within career or leaving maybe a job and coming into entrepreneurship. And I just know all of the struggles that I had and all of the support that I wish that I had. And I wanted to do that. And so we started talking about that. She had a similar vision. And it was like, why not work together? Because certainly our minds coming together and as in a partnership is better than both of us out here trying to get it done with brute strength. And so we really set out, and for about a year, we really just sat around the table, really trying to understand what the gap was. What is it that we want a solution that we want to provide, and what are we trying to solve for? And what we landed on, again, was we kept coming back to transition, that women of color, because of the place that we exist within society, we always operate out of a place of strength, right? Because usually we're the minority in the room, in business, in corporate. So, we have to be 10 times better. That's definitely the model that I grew up. You can't just be good, you've got to be great. And that pressure to be great, to be 10 times better, to always be at the head of the class, it doesn't allow for much vulnerability. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It doesn't really allow much space to say, I don't know, I need help. And so we just suffer through things. Usually we figure it out, but we're dying on the vine because of it. And so what we said was we wanted the Be Her Collective, and it's be.her, because the B is you are becoming whatever B is for you. Whatever you were created to do, whatever you were purposed to do, you can do it, and we're going to help you. And so the collective is not just Rochelle and I providing information, because it's an enrichment platform where we look at all of the transitions that women are facing. And we say, how can we plug that gap and provide resources, support, and community to help women transition through these major life changes? And we do that through our Amber Labs. And so we have Amber experts that are part of the collective, and it's enrichment. Once a month, we'll come together, we'll learn, but not just somebody preaching at you, but providing. If you want to transition to entrepreneurship and you've never developed a business plan, we're not only going to talk to you about how to do that, but we're going to show you. Here's a starting place, and then we're going to help you fill it out. We're going to help you get it done. And so we're so excited about it because we really believe it's going to be a game changer for women of color who are in transition, who know that there's something next for them, but they're too afraid. They lack the confidence. They lack the resources. They lack the support to make that next step.
That's incredible.
Thank you.
That is so incredible. So how does somebody get involved?
So there's a few ways to get involved. Obviously, as a member, so we just launched in September. So membership is open between from September to December 31st, 2024. It's just $97. $99. 97. Why would I say 97? $99 for the first year. So that's through 2025. So a really low barrier of entry because we want women to join up. Starting January, we'll start the labs, and that's, again, those monthly enrichment courses, as well as other events that we'll have throughout the year to pull us together and to pull us forward. So I'd say you can join. You can also let us know if you're interested in being an Amber expert. If you have an area of expertise that's pivotal to these transitions in business, in family, because we're looking at the whole woman, spirit, mind, and body. Understanding that if we just care about the business and we don't care about who I am as, spiritually, if we don't care about who in my wellness, then we're still losing, right? Because we're arriving at places of success professionally, but we're sick, we're depressed, we're anxious, we're unhappy, and it doesn't have to be that way.
This life, it is lifing.
Life is life.
Everything that, it's isn't that also just life? Like one area when you're personally well, maybe the professional is down, when your professional's up. Like, it's so hard to find the marriage in between the two.
For sure.
What's your advice on that?
My advice is, one, to be sober to it. Because I think, again, what we tend to do is just power through it. And we don't pause for a minute to say, I am miserable over here. Like this is going really, really well. I'm happy for that. But in this area of my life, maybe it's my marriage. Maybe it's my relationship with my children. Maybe it's my health. Right? Like I'm finally here, but I've gained 25 pounds getting here.
And then you feel,
and now I feel dumpy and I feel miserable.
And you don't feel confident, so it affects the business.
Exactly. And so it's being sober to the fact that you are many things and that you have to create space to honor yourself in your totality and know how to ask for help and then to receive the help. Because asking is one thing, availing yourself of it is another. And so it's just that, and then being affirmative and proactive, you have to then go do something about it.
I feel like that's the hardest part, especially in this era too, even of content. I saw a LinkedIn post of a gentleman yesterday that really, I took a picture of it because I've been sitting on this fence, and it said, to become an authority, stop consuming content and start creating. And I was like, man, just at me, dude. And it's kind of that thing too. Like, I am a big believer in learning and in all aspects of life, but especially like even professionally, right? Like being a master of your craft, like advancing what you can, learn as much as you can, all that stuff. But at some point you just got to start doing. You can't keep learning.
You got to piss or get off the pot.
Yeah. Like, you can't keep learning.
You cannot be, a perpetual learner.
No.
Only.
Right.
You've got to combine that with the doing, the
Correct.
Executing, the activating.
Right. And
women, we suffer from this the most. And it is what holds us back because we use it as a crutch. I just want to be my best. And we're letting perfection get in the way of progress. But really, we're using that because as long as we can validate that we're in this learning stage and we're building and we're readying ourselves, then we give ourselves permission to not activate.
To not act. Man.
So that's the challenge.
That is so hard to hear.
Yeah.
Because it's so true. It's easy to buy yourself time. If you just continue saying, well, I'm learning, I don't know, I'm not comfortable yet. There's so much of this, and time is going by so fast.
Procrastination is a thief.
Yeah.
Procrastination is a thief. And it really does come to steal your moment, to steal your opportunity, to steal your success. And so being sober to the fact that I'm using learning as it's really a procrastination.
Right.
Tool for me. Like it's giving me an excuse not to do, not to act. When you recognize that and you realize, okay, but that's coming to steal. What is it coming to steal from me? What is on the other side of my activation that I'm not going to get if I keep allowing myself to stay paused? And then that makes me mad as hell. It does. It makes me mad. It makes me mad.
I got to write this down. The procrastination is a thief. It's
thief.
So good.
And then it's like, you're trying to steal from me. And then I get a chip on my shoulder. And it's like, I'm going to, and you know how you can tell that this is true? It's because when you get on social media and you see people and you're like, I know I'm better than them. I know more than them. And they are doing this and they're making money and they're building an audience and guess what? Because they act.
That's kind of where, it's like the lady sleeping.
Yes.
On TikTok, getting paid. It's one of these things where I saw it somewhere on Instagram. Maybe it was a meme and it was, honestly, it might have been a clip of Denzel Washington saying it. And it talks about how there's somebody far less educated than you doing more than you just because they do.
Just because they do.
That thought is sobering at the fact that someone, and I talk about this in our industry too, even in relation to content, even like the person that can be found first is the person that wins more.
Yes.
That's the way the market is going.
Yes.
So I don't even have to be the best insurance agent. If I'm found first, I get more opportunity.
Which means you have to be visible.
Which means you have to be visible, which means you have to put yourself out there. And it's wild because we sold an agency. My family sold our agency in 2018 and I took 1 year off. And in that year, so much changed. This concept of like having to do this to grow my business, doing, showing up on LinkedIn personally, right? Like doing all these things with Daniel, taking different styles of photos to present myself in different lights to grow my business. It's so different and it's so new. So so much of it is uncomfortable. And that fact of just like, man, the first person to try is the one that it's like the squeaky wheel.
Yeah.
That whatever that saying is, right?
The oil.
Gets the oil, right? Like it's the same concept of whether or not I mean, and I am a believer of having the tactical side, right? Like we were at Daniel's event last night and the debate of, is his business growing because he's a good photographer or because he's personal? No, his photos are undeniably the best, right? So he's got the tactical knowledge and I am a believer of that, but it can't be a crutch.
It can't be a crutch.
I can't continue to gain tactical knowledge and not do.
Exactly. 100%. And I think we are, again, seeing how times are changing and really demand. Yeah. And you will get left behind.
Yes.
You will be left behind. And so it's my challenge to anyone listening that's sort of having a similar struggle. Like, I know there's things I want to do. I don't feel like I'm ready yet.
That's different.
Well,
but that feeling is different though, because you're still doing other things. There's people that just continuously learn and don't.
That's true.
Do it all.
And I'm talking to that person more, right? The person that's using I'm learning as an excuse, and I'm not doing it because I don't feel ready because I'm still learning.
Yeah.
Right. Like my challenge is just do it one day, maybe 1 week. You're carving out the thing that you are planning to do. You just step out to do it, whether that's turning on the camera and posting your first video. Whether that is reaching out to someone that is on your list that you want to, build a relationship with, whatever it is, just make one step. And what you'll realize is come rain or shine, you are going to be better because at a minimum, you're going to learn something new, right? You lose nothing by activating. You lose nothing. You lose everything because, again, procrastination is a thief. You lose everything by allowing yourself to remain stuck and in procrastination, but you gain so much from. I'll give you an example. I launched my law firm and the content studio. There's very few people doing social media law. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking everywhere. Like, where is there an example that I can model this practice after? And I was able to glean a few things, but I mean, by and large, there was nothing to do. And so I was doing that, like spinning my wheels. Well, maybe I can learn this and do this. And there was a deadline. Like, listen, either you're going to do this or you're not. Like, it doesn't have to be all figured out.
Right.
Like, you have been practicing law for almost 20 years. If you don't know how to show up and be great and, build this business, when are you ever going to know it? When are you ever going to be more confident than you are right now? Right? Confidence comes from taking the risk. And when you see you didn't die,
yeah.
When you see that people actually respond to you.
It's never as bad as you thought.
It's never as bad as you thought, but you've got to challenge yourself to activate to even get to that point. And then the next step will come. And the next step after that.
And I think that this is so good. This episode is going to be amazing, by the way, because you're so raw and like honest with your advice and thank you. Thank you, because I need it. But the misconception of that you can't build while learning. That's right. Like you've been doing this for 20 years. When are you ever going to be more confident? And also just start, because you can build as you go.
You can. And that's has a lot to do with not being afraid to pivot. You know, a lot of times we're afraid of change. And so it's, you know, just that jerky feeling in business.
And I feel like for me, it almost like, oh God, if I have to pivot, I lose credibility.
Right.
That's how I feel.
Well, I mean, and I think you have to have context for that.
Right.
Because like it's like, oh, that didn't work, so let me do this. Like that's different than I'm out here and now that I'm seeing and I'm learning and I'm experiencing. And you know, Daily Drip does this very well. Mm-hmm. It's like, you know, it's a great product. It's a great group. It's a great platform. But as we learn more from our thought leaders and from our community, we recognize that, you know, they need us to serve them in this way. So we're not going to do that anymore so that we can provide better value over here or more value over here. And that's a pivot. That's a change. You know, the Daily Drip isn't what it was when they first launched. You know, and so I think giving yourself permission to recognize that just like you're growing personally, so will your business. Like your business is living, breathing. It is an organism that should be growing. It should be changing, and it should look different depending on sort of the goals and where you're headed, based on what you're learning and based on sort of how the client base is responding to what you're providing. Mm-hmm. You should be paying attention. So I know that my customers, yes, I have my hourly rate and I have my customers that I charge that rate and I don't negotiate that. But then I have this segment of my creator population that I recognize they don't even know what they need yet. Right. So they need education from me. I have to teach them what they need. I have to grow them into my big offer. Right? So if all I want to do is the big offer, I'm losing the potential to grow with clients over time and build that loyalty over time that is going to be beneficial for all of us as we grow in this, you know, client provider relationship. But I had to realize that was a thing. So that was a change. But you can't be afraid to pivot.
It's also just, I mean, the work that you're doing is so impactful because there's people that are foregoing education and careers to do this. And you're protecting livelihoods of families and children. Like, it's a big deal.
We're not even thinking, listen, I had a client once that had a YouTube channel with a boyfriend. Several 100,000 followers. They broke up. Who owns the YouTube channel? These are things that we don't think about. When you say protecting, yes, this is their life. This is how they made money. This is all they did for work. And so this dispute over who owns the YouTube channel, in their world, it might not mean anything for those who go to work and punch a clock from 9 to 5 because it's just foreign. Like, YouTube. Right. But this is their business. And so, you know, yes, they need someone to fight for them. They need someone to educate them. They need someone to help them be proactive in how they're protecting their assets online.
So much information and so good. And I think that's why I think you're driving this train of being the person also alerting people and maybe because it's fun and it's always been a source of entertainment. Maybe people just don't see it as a business, but you know, when you sit down and you say that example, I've seen marriage accounts even on TikTok, right? They get a divorce and then what? So the stream of income is done for both. Like that whole concept of, hey, this isn't just fun. This is a business that can grow your legacy.
Yeah.
If you run it the right way and if you protect it the right way, it's no different than having a free, you know, a brick and mortar place, basically, as far as protection.
That's right.
It's a real tangible business. It's not just fun and likes anymore. And it's only, I think it's only going to continue being seen that way. If anything, it'll be less entertainment and more business money making opportunities in what's coming, obviously with you know the numbers shift. I want to be respectful of your time. One last question for you. So the premise of this, you know, podcast is I just want to offer help to new entrepreneurs. And in this conversation, in this hour, I mean, I think the majority of us are new, right? No matter how long you've been in business. What's the number one piece of advice that you can give to this business owner that is wearing so many hats, starting, right? They're doing everything and thinks content, I just don't have the time for it.
Yeah. One, you have to make the time for it. Reaching your customers, I'll talk about people off the platforms, like those business owners that I work with, who are now understanding that the way that they show up online is, and we talked about it a little last night, it is that walking resume, right? And that referral bank, right? So people can go to see and test you out before they ever sit in front of you and say yes to the product or service that you're selling. It is that calling card that really helps establish your brand in the market. Again, whether or not you're seeking customers from social media or not, it's something that you need to do to be visible. You know, people are not searching for service providers in the same way that they used to. They're literally, these are search engines. TikTok is a search engine.
Right.
And so you want to have a presence there so that people can find you. But then the other piece of advice that I would have, because outside of my social media clients, I serve small and mid-sized businesses at providing fractional general counsel services. And that's where I'm sitting in their business as a strategic legal partner. In this respect, they have the same issue as my social media clients, is they don't understand the necessity to have someone like me as a strategic business partner. You hire legal counsel or you hire Sierra when something's coming up and it's like, oh my gosh, I need to make sure I have insurance, or I need to make sure I have this contract in place.
It's reactionary.
My biggest piece of advice is, though you're wearing many hats, you have to, as early as you can, you have to make the investment in these strategic partners, even on a fractional basis, so that you can grow from a place of authority and from a place of confidence, knowing that some of these basic things are covered. Like, I worked with some photographers that didn't even understand that owning the copyright to the photos that they're producing for their clients is another negotiation tool. Like, you own it, but you're giving it away at no cost. So it's, working with people that can even help you see your blind spots and see opportunities where maybe you haven't seen them before, and to protect yourself. So you're not getting sued for things that you don't even understand are risks for your business. So that's my advice is, one, understand that just from the social media side, take a small step forward and establish a presence, because you want to be relevant. And in the next couple of years, if you don't have some presence, consistent presence on social media, you're going to be irrelevant even in your local market. And the other piece of advice is, hire for strategic support as soon as possible, because then that is going to free you up to be able to do more of what you do well, which is going to grow your business, because you shouldn't be worried about drafting contracts. You shouldn't be worried about doing the accountant's work.
And the majority of business owners don't know how to do any of those things that you need to resource out.
Exactly.
That's not why we're in business.
That's right. And when you copy a template from, Google, you're creating, I'd rather you not have one of those.
Honestly, just don't.
Just don't.
That's so true. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being with us today. Tell everybody where they can find you.
You can find me at Melia, Meliaesq, on all platforms.
Love that. Thank you. Definitely want to have you back. And I promise you, my vow is that I am going to create a plan for my content. I'm telling you, I even got the little mics, I got the lights, I got the stands, I got it all. I'm going to do it. I just got to pull the trigger.
And I'm here to help.
So thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.